How's it going, David?
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Cortland. Doing great. Excited to be here.
So our first entrepreneur is Louis Nichols, a long-term Indie Hackers Forum member. I talk to you on the forum almost every day, Louis. Why don't you tell David a little bit about what you're up to, and you guys take it from here.
Sure. Yeah, we have like 10, 15 minutes, right?
Yeah, about 10 minutes.
Okay, awesome. Right. Well, so like my background is basically in B2B SaaS. So I've done a couple of companies in that space, folded a few, sold one, and now I'm thinking about something new. And basically it's a problem that I see a lot of people talk about. Well, no, I see a lot of people have it. So every kind of founder who I've talked to, kind of over a beer or a coffee in private, has some kind of, they'll have had some bad experience with their co-founders or some relationship problem over the years. Maybe it's the very beginning. Maybe it turns out it's a couple of years later, but something goes wrong. I've had it as well. Everyone I know has it, but no one talks about it. So because no one's talking about it, people, like new people, keep making the same mistakes. And that's basically, I don't have a product as such yet, but that's what I want to solve. So I kind of have, I guess, three areas I'd love to talk to you about, because I think there are basically three separate problems in there, and I'm not sure which one I'll tackle first. On the one hand, it's kind of how do you find a good co-founder? How do you kind of test for co-founder fit, and set up like a solid relationship? Then the second problem is more just about kind of covering your bases on the legal side. So having a good co-founder agreement, a vesting schedule, tag along, drag along, all that kind of stuff, aligning your goals. And then the third part is just once you founded a startup together after the first couple of months, how do you kind of keep the communication rolling? So you don't kind of drift apart, you don't find yourself pulling in different directions, the trust's still there. Those are kind of the three things I'm thinking about, and I'd love to get your feedback. Kind of, you obviously have a lot of experience with this, and I think that'd be helpful for anyone watching anyway. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Thanks, Louis. I think, I think you're right. I think co-founder relationships are really difficult. A lot of companies fail because co-founder relationships fail. So it's definitely a thing that you kind of want to work on getting right. I think it's generally like the exception to the rule for co-founder relationships to work really well. But I think that doesn't have to be the case. I think, if you build a product here, or the more people like have a strategy that they can execute against on like managing a co-founder relationship, probably the more successful people will be. So I totally agree with you. I guess diving into these three sort of pain points that exist with co-founders. How have you been thinking about it? Have you been thinking about like creating a community of, potential founders who are, co-founder dating type situation, or like which of these do you think you want to tackle first?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think probably the second problem, so like the most concrete, which is just getting like a good, let's say like the basics covered, aligning your goals, getting a good co-founder like agreement set up.
Yeah.
I guess that's something that YC probably helped you guys a lot with, but I think if you're a normal person, you don't have too many resources that are high quality.
Totally. And there's a ton of blog posts online about how to do this, but there's like, how do you find the signal and all the noise and stuff? Quora has a bunch of stuff, but I generally, like, my general opinion is, Silicon Valley startups, for example, have a very standard way of being created, and all docs, and for all founders. And it's very typical to basically be a Delaware C corporation with a 4-year vesting period and a 1-year cliff. I think, when it comes to the standard, when it comes to, legal and stuff like that, my opinion is generally just don't reinvent the wheel, just do it the standard way. There's a lot, I think when, figuring this stuff out, like logic is really important, to be on the same page with the logic. And I think the logic that, pretty much the majority of all startups use this formation and it works. And so like, there's not really a good case to do anything differently.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was thinking maybe I think there's a stage, especially for a lot of indie hackers, which is before you go to like founding a
Right.
company, because it doesn't tend to start off necessarily as a company, right? And you also
Yeah.
then you still have this question of like aligning the goals and stuff like that, like who makes the decisions, who makes what decisions. That's
Yeah.
not necessarily stuff that comes into a co-founder like a shareholder agreement, but it is stuff that you have to talk
Yeah.
about in advance, right?
Yeah, that's a
But
really
maybe
good
it's
point.
maybe it's a
No,
difficult.
that's a really good point. Like how do you do this like informally? I think the good news is like it doesn't have to be perfect, because I think setting expectations is really important, but I think doing that broadly and like, papering it up later is a better idea. But like being clear, having it in an email, for example, up front, and like deciding, even if it changes, like who's the project lead, who's the CEO for this project. And generally I think a great way to start that is whoever's got the most passion or like that interest in this idea. Maybe whoever came up with it is like, I'm the project lead, I'm going to be the CEO, let's do this 50-50, but be flexible as we get later. Like, let's do this as a test run for 4 weeks, and once we hit the 4 week mark, let's talk about like what we're going to do next, and like check in against that maybe regularly. And I think the important thing is for people to be flexible at first, because you don't want to get, a lot of times this stuff can stop you from just starting at all, and you want to just get focused on like building. And I think that is a general like way for people to start off. It appears to be fair. I think always in partnerships, someone always going to feel like they work more than the other person, and so it's almost impossible to get that right. But I think if you agree to set expectations that we're trying this, let's see how the next 1 month, X period of time goes, then we're going to check in and we'll formalize it, if we hit this metric.
That sounds fair. That sounds great. How are we doing for time, Coral? Are we okay?
You got about 4 minutes left.
Oh, okay, brilliant. Then I'd just love to hear kind of your thoughts around, like when you get a bit further, kind of how, or any experience you've had around kind of keeping the relationship fair and kind of the trust there, keeping yourself aligned as a co-founder team, maybe even years down the line, because that's something that I found really, really hard. So if you have
Yeah,
any
I
advice,
agree.
that would be amazing.
I agree. It's super hard. And, a lot of times companies sort of take on a life of their own before you're ready. And so anyway, it's always complicated and always different, but it's always great if you have a common mission or goal for the company, and the co-founders are like absolutely aligned on whatever that is. And so if you can get that out of the way in the beginning, that really makes everything great. But if you don't have that, then you need to come up with that basically as soon as you can, and like find alignment, because at the end of the day, like there's always these ups and downs, right? And like if you're both have the same North Star, even if you're fighting with each other, like you can agree that that's your North Star, and you can just work towards that. Yeah. But I do think, yeah, like, one-on-ones, it's a bit formal, but like I do really believe in one-on-ones for startups, for any team, really. One-on-ones with co-founders especially. Like it may seem a little bit forward, but like, do a half an hour regularly scheduled once a week check-in with each other. Sometimes you do one-on-one check-ins every day when things are like really, really crazy, and you need to. But I think at least once a week, where at least you both know that this is a time and space where you can address sort of some things in a regular way. Like hopefully you're addressing things regularly, but if not, at least having that one-on-one time dedicated will force that up. And it oftentimes it feels like it's a waste, maybe it's a waste of time or you don't need it, but it's the times when you do need it that it becomes really valuable and worth having those 20 weeks of sort of low impact one-on-ones, and then that that really important time comes and you have that regular cadence and relationship built. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, I've got so much I'd love to dive like deeper into, but but maybe there's someone else who kind of wants to jump in, because
Cool.
You got another few minutes if you want to take some time to just talk about something random.
something random.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else do you want to ask David?
I don't know, maybe if like from your personal experience or people you've seen on the co-founder side of stuff, like how do you, I guess when you're in a VC backed company, then I guess you suddenly co-founders start to take on vastly differing roles, and the team gets much bigger, especially the management team. But
Yeah.
how do you kind of did you have like a structure apart from like the one-on-ones, maybe like on the personal side? Did you have an advisor or a mentor or someone that you'd go to if you weren't seeing eye to eye? Like, do you have any like practical tips, I guess?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think definitely having an advisor or a mentor definitely helps. I mean, especially if you're a first time founder, it's like, how do you know what to do? It seems like this is super, like whenever you're going through any sort of trouble with your co-founder, you feel like maybe this is super unique to you, but knowing that this happens to everybody and like having someone who you can sort of rely on to like get advice from is super helpful. But I think having like regularly and open communication with your co-founder is like the best sort of prescription from the get-go, and like and really forcing each other to be transparent with each other early, so that there's not this tension of like keeping things from each other and like wanting to say something to the other person and harboring that resentment because there's no open communication. So I really do think just really like having open communication helps a lot. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that sounds amazing. And maybe one kind of last question if we have time would just be more around like as you grow, and obviously I think people they find a role maybe that fits for them really well, or maybe they don't grow as fast as the team needs them to on a
Mm-hmm.
co-founding team, especially if you have more than 2 or 3 people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how would you go about kind of having that difficult conversation with someone?
Yeah, I mean, I think startups often, especially as a founder or CEO or any leader at a startup, you have a lot of hard conversations. And I think again, when you have a mission for the company that everyone is aligned with, it becomes more objective to talk about these things, talking about how do we best serve the mission of the company. And I think framing the conversation around the mission of the company helps have these harder conversations and helps people sort of understand the motivations from like an objective perspective versus like, hey, you're not doing a great job. It's different. It's like, the company needs this to succeed, and like we think we need to hire this person, which is like your title right now, but actually that title is what we need to give someone to actually get this done. Like, are you comfortable with that, or how would you feel about that? And like just really having a conversation around like the objective and how how everyone can like participate towards that objective, to make it work, to make it happen.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That was really useful.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Cool. Thanks, Louis.
All right. Thanks, David. Thanks, Louis.
Mm-hmm.
We're now going to move on to our second guest, Abdullah. I'm going to bring you on. Hope you're ready. Panelist. Here we go. So Abdullah, once you're in here, why don't you tell David a little bit about who you are, what you're up to, and what you'd like his help with?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for setting this up, guys. So I'm Abdullah, and what we're working on is air chat. And on air chat, you basically chat with people without typing. There's no typing at all. So you basically, if you guys use WhatsApp, you will be familiar with voice notes. So you just speak and you send the message. So we started working on this towards the end of last year. And we just got a beta out last week. And we got about 100 people to join organically without actually pushing it on Reddit or different platforms. So my main question is, how do you get people to kind of start using it? And I just want to say, is it okay to share my screen to show kind of how the app works, just so they can get a better idea of it?
Yeah, I think you should be able to share your screen. It should.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, I'll just show you like a minute and a half. Let me see. I am 1 second. Okay, can you see my screen, or are you seeing the Zoom?
Yeah, I see a tab. You're on Firebase.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, you should see that link. Anyway, this is basically the idea of what AirChat is. You basically send voice notes. Now, there's this feature we have where mutual friends can listen into what you're talking about. I'll dive in a little bit about that. But the idea is very simple. You basically air chat while you're on the go, while you're walking, or maybe you're on your electric scooter, whatever it may be. And it's not like a call, but you leave like voice droplets, if we'll call them that. And yeah, I will quickly show you kind of how it works from like a quick video I made. You basically do the normal stuff like sign up, etc. And this is like where you have your messages, and this is how you make an eh. Hello, how's it going? And boom, you've got a message. So you pretty much get that idea, and then you can kind of see how a conversation kind of goes. This is one I was having with one of my friends. I'll show you in a second. Yeah. So you can kind of play, and everything kind of plays sequentially, like playing a playlist on. I'm not sure. Can you guys hear the sound? Okay, great.
Well, first of all, what color are you thinking of? Then for science, I'll see if that's possible to change.
That's basically kind of how the conversation goes. So we got our first piece of feedback. I'll just quickly, wait 1 second. I'll quickly play it.
I love this app. You don't understand. I love it. Like, oh my God. And one of the reasons why people actually probably rush for this app is because, you know, there's this whole thing about, oh, those that have AirPods are like better than those that don't have AirPods. So I feel like it's going to be sweet. And half of the world probably has AirPods by now. But I love it. And I don't have to type. I hate typing sometimes. And I don't have to hold it down like voice notes. Oh, this is amazing. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud.
So I'll just show you one more piece of the feature, this is what I was talking about, where you can actually have other people listen to the chats that you're having, and not anyone but mutual friends. But then after consulting with my friend, I realized
not everybody should listen to your chat. So you need to fix that. I think that's the only thing. I think like now I'm studying, I'm doing my notes, and I just finished making a voice note on Snapchat, and I have to keep holding it down for now. I like it. And people will download it.
so basically there has to be like another kind of way that people will understand they're going public with their chats. So separating kind of the private stuff from the public stuff would be a good way to go. And I'll just say one thing. I haven't used the word podcast since I started, but if you actually look at this, what AirChat is at an atomic level, it's basically people having conversations. So it's people kind of having their own little niche podcasts, and their mutual friends listen to it. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we built it in the first place. So yeah, what do you guys think?
Cool. Thank you, Abdullah. So yeah, I actually, when I saw it in the comments, I was actually really excited by the concept of like, yeah, a podcast on the fly where you like, so that use case makes sense to me. But now seeing the demo, it seems more of like a voice chat app. And then, so anyway, so like why would someone use this as a voice chat app instead of WhatsApp sending a voice message, or iMessage sending a voice message?
Very good question. So the key kind of part that we want to show people is the conversation part, is your friends talking to one another. We're all part of one or two group chats, but it's different when you see like a distant friend you haven't talked to in like 6 months, having a conversation with someone else about something. It might be like they're watching a game and they're talking about it. So that is actually like the the feature that will be difficult to implement,
Got it.
let's say WhatsApp or iMessage or
Got it.
what have you. Yeah.
So it's sort of broadcasting is the unique,
Kinda.
right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and so have you considered making it, live conversations versus like asynchronous messages?
We have thought of that. One of the things that we've actually looked at is the success of Marco Polo. Marco Polo is a video, chat app where you don't have live videos, but you kind of send video messages on the go. So it's for people that are usually busy. Now, if we're going with the live feature, it's basically a phone call, right?
Right.
And we're not kind of trying to replace phone calls if we want to look at it, but we have thought of it. So you could have like live phone calls that other people listen into. That's quite
Right. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think you're onto something, and it's interesting, and you've obviously made a lot of progress on building it. Like, it works. I think the important thing is really decide like who is it for and why, and just pick one to start out. Because I don't know if you're asking. I mean, do you have any traction yet? Do you have any users yet?
We do. We have about let me quickly show you here. We have gotten like a few organic downloads, like 160 or so. And this is without even like reaching out.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's your goal with AirChat?
The goal with AirChat is really so it comes from a place where I love listening to podcasts, but then I find myself left out, and I'm not actually part of the podcast conversation, because I'm always wondering, what if I could, speak to the podcaster, leave a comment, right? Or, hey, what other listeners are listening to? Like, there's this data that Apple released. There are about 600,000 podcasts and about 124 million listeners. So I keep wondering, like, what information could all these listeners have that could add to the value of the podcast? So really, why we're building AirChat is for the value of conversation. And there's so much value in it. And if we could tap into that, and people could learn so much. And the amazing thing is they could save time learning things like how we drive and listen to podcasts, or how we do our chores and listen to podcasts. So that's the idea.
And so do you want to build a community around the listeners of a podcast who are having their own side conversations, or do you want to create a community of like people who create podcasts on the fly?
That's interesting. I'm gonna be honest with you. That is one of the big challenges we're having. Like, exactly who would use it? We have, and I like the idea of a community. To be honest, that to me, it resonates a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, I would, if those are the two, like, I think in order to get to one, maybe you have to start with two and like figure it out. I think the most important thing is, if we're talking about how do you get traction with AirChat, like how do you get a big user base and start growing the community? I think you have to be really specific about who should use it. Right. And so you can test these out. You can try it as, hey, we're a community of podcast listeners having conversations around certain podcasts. And you can pick one podcast, start recruiting users from that community, and like kind of do a test of like, will people chat about this podcast, right? Or whatever outcome you want. And then you can do another test of, we're AirChat, we are a podcasting on the fly platform. Create a podcast with your friend and share it with your social network, and just see which one, if you're open to doing either one, like which one gets actual traction. And you'll have, maybe you'll set a goal of, we want to have, X number of conversations uploaded with this experiment within this period of time. And if that doesn't happen, we need to change something. Right. So like doing these experiments to see, which one would work, and then doubling down on that to really grow the community. Because my feedback right now is it's not clear who should be using it. And so that means your users, who are the users? How do they know what they should be using it for? And so I think getting specific around the messaging and then recruiting those types of users and see how they use it, or if they use it.
Okay.
Yeah, in my opinion, my biased opinion, I'm really excited about podcasts. I love podcasting. I'm starting a podcast myself, and this thought has come up before. Like, well, wouldn't it be cool if we could just have a conversation and record it and like just upload it to our friends? you know, and share whatever we're learning. And so I think that idea could be interesting to a lot of people. But anyway, in any case, yeah, I would definitely recommend just picking, you know, getting to a point where you've decided which is your target user, and then trying to grow that community.
Okay.
But until you pick that, it's going to be hard to grow.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will look at the two you've recommended and see if other, you know, communities could kind of spring up from that, and we'll try and double down on it.
Yeah, definitely. I think you obviously know much more about the space than I do, and so, like, you know, following your gut, or like doing what excites you, doing the tests around those ideas and doubling down.
Okay, I'll do that.
I want to echo what David said. Picking a target audience, picking out who your users are, is super helpful, because it makes these seemingly difficult to make decisions, like which direction do we go down, a lot easier when you actually know who you're building for. So,
okay,
if you're building a community, it's something that I think about a lot with indie hackers.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Okay, so on to contestant number 3, Tila Andrews in the chat. Tila, I'm going to promote you to a panelist. And why don't you come on and introduce yourself and tell David a little bit about what you're working on and what you'd like help with. I think he made it in. I can't tell. Tila, can you try saying something? All right, I'm not getting anything from Tila. Let me try Mike Roth. And then after that, we'll go to Connor. And then after that, we'll go back to Tila if Tila's got his stuff working. So, Mike, I'm going to get you in here. Mike, how's it going?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. How's it going, David? Okay, so I'll just give you a quick hot wash on. So I'm developing an app called Liveate. We launched it in July of 18. The way the app works is users, it's kind of a local flavor app, so users can go to different bars and restaurants that we have agreements with and get a free drink each month. So sort of a value proposition app, $10 a month subscription, you can get conceivably 30 free drinks. That number hopefully increases over time. But right now we've got 27 service providers. So this app isn't new. This idea isn't new. Punch cards have been around for a long time, free drink tickets and whatnot. So I guess my question for you, and I actually just had a phone call with somebody who developed a similar app in a different geographic location. And they folded shop, and basically they had a lot of the exact same issues we are having. And I guess the biggest question I have right now is, so every time I talk to sort of our target users, which are 25 to 40-year-old people who, professionals who go out and have a drink every so often, happy hour folks, if you will, they're always like, hey, this is a great idea. I love this app. But the issue is conversion and retention really isn't there. And it's not just, like I said, it's not just my app, it's similar apps. And I think that's sort of a common theme that I'm hearing. So what are your thoughts on, like, when you get great feedback from potential customers and then no conversion or poor retention?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think you often want to look at sort of what users do versus what the users say. So in this case, if someone's saying that they really love the app, maybe they do, maybe they really love the idea, but then when it comes to like executing their idea of using this app for whatever reason, are they using it or not? And you can love an idea, but maybe it doesn't make sense to use it regularly, in which case maybe it's hard for an idea. Maybe, I don't know. The way the user acts versus how they say, like, tells you a lot about your product, right? So if they say they love it, but they're not using it, why are they not using it? And have you asked that question?
Yeah, so I'm starting to reach out to more customers, and really all of them are like, I just don't know why I haven't used it, kind of thing. And it's sort of like one of those, one of the feedback, some of the feedback I got was, hey, I'll be at a place that I could have gotten a free drink at, and I'll leave and I'll be like, oh shit, I could have got. And so I set up push notifications based on geographic proximity to our service partners, and saw a little bump, but not a big bump, you know, in usage. I would say that probably 2 out of every 3 users that download the app and sign up and put their email address in and go through the entire process never once redeem a drink. And I really don't I can't wrap my mind around that, I guess. So.
Yeah, that's a tough problem. And I totally feel the trough of sorrow, pain, and not knowing, like, when do you pivot, when do you decide. And so I guess, so you've been working on it for 9 months. What has, like, the growth graph look like? Did it, like, spike and then stop, or, like, are you growing at all, or what does it look like?
It's fairly linear. So if you look at both in terms of new user signups and then actual drink redemptions, both fairly linear. I keep getting a trickle. No, it hasn't really spiked. It hasn't. There's very few spikes. I sponsored a few blog posts and stuff and got some little bumps here and there, but then they normalize again, and it's stayed fairly linear. I'm just getting into reading Traction by Gabriel Weinberg, and listening to Cortland's podcasts, and I'm finding that a lot of this issues I'm kind of running into are very common. You hear a lot of people like me go off kind of half-cocked and think if they build a really cool idea, then people just adopt it and use it, and you don't have to market it, and because it's so cool that everybody's going to want to do it. And obviously that's not the case for me any more than it is for anybody else. So I can't hear you, David.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think if you build it, they will not come, is basically the thing. And you have to, like, figure out, how do you get customers, right? And so what is your goal for this app long term?
Yeah, so I think I'm fairly content with the idea of it being just a lifestyle app. A couple thousand MRR. I think if we could get it to really launch and do well in my city, I really think it could scale as almost like a franchising opportunity, and basically work with somebody else in a different geographic location. Be like, hey, you do all the legwork and we provide the app. But until it takes off here, there's really obviously no market there. So.
And have you set, for example, like, weekly goals for number of users, or how have you approached, like, any goal setting?
Yeah, so I had set some goals early on, and then when that trough of sorrow thing comes in, you set those goals, and then all of a sudden the numbers are very different. Really my main goal was to have a kind of a relationship between free users. So we have a free version where users can go to one place each month and get one free drink, or they can pay $10 and they can go to all of them and get. So my goal is to have a ratio there kind of between paid and free, and then that would kind of drive how I moved forward. And that ratio is very different. Right. I have a lot of free users, a lot of people who will pop in a coupon and then sort of never convert to.
And so for the business model, what's the business model? So you have users who pay, and then do the bars pay you?
The bars do not. So it's just, we're running a free promotion for them. Okay.
And so so the bar eats the cost of the free drink, or do you pay the bar for the drink?
Yeah, the bar eats the cost of the free drink.
Okay. And so what has your worst week looked like in terms of new users per week, and what has your best week looked like?
I'd say the worst week was probably like 5 new users. Best week was probably 40. Again, of those, it's almost embarrassing to talk about how few of them are paying. So
no, that's okay. I mean,
users or coupon users. So I throw out a lot of like promotional coupons, 1 or 2 months for free, just trying to get people using it as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think, one way, to sort of dig yourself out of, whatever stagnation you're going through with any product in any company, is to set goals with really short like feedback cycles. So it could be a daily goal, it could be a weekly goal. But given that you now have 9 months of data on like what was our best week, what was our worst week, it sounds like setting a goal somewhere between 0 and 40 is reasonable. And then I would say, set a goal somewhere between that as a weekly goal, and then think of all of the different ways that you need, all the different ways you can achieve that goal, right? It might mean you have to go hang out at a bar and talk to a bunch of people there and tell them, hey, download this app. It might mean you have to go and ask the bars to say, hey, tell all of your guests, or, to download this app to get a free drink. Like, I think by setting those short goals, and holding yourself accountable, or getting someone to hold you accountable to those goals, whether it's a friend or an advisor or a co-founder, of like, every Monday we're going to check in against this goal this week, and our goal is to grow 20% week over week. And and you'll adjust those goals as you go, but having that shorter feedback loop and having the accountability is going to force you to figure out, is it possible for me to like brute force users into using this? Does it become easier over time? Do people stay? It just gives you like some more signal and a track to kind of follow, and you'll probably learn a lot. I think a friend recently who's like a restaurant entrepreneur was talking about, how do you get customers in your door, and he would go and hang out by the train station and give out free menus, so there's just like weird little things that are like really sloggy that you kind of have to do sometimes to get things out there. And I think setting weekly goals, holding yourself accountable, will help you learn a lot about how you get users. And as you do that, whether you hit the goals or not, you'll get a sense of like, okay, what is this going to take? I would say, set your weekly, have like a 3-month goal. So I'd start with like a 3-month goal. So in 3 months, I want to have, 1,000 users. And so that means I need to get this many per week starting now. And then like, do this every week, have someone hold you accountable. And then at the end of that 3 months, it could be any period, really check in with yourself and say, okay, I've done everything I could to hit these goals. I've looked at the goals every week to see if these were the right goals or not. And it's been 3 months. Like, now you have a better way of looking at the future. Like, okay, I know if I want to grow this to 1 million users, or like, 10,000 users in my city, I'm going to need to do X, Y, and Z. It's going to require hiring this many people. This is how much potential revenue. Like, is it worth it? Or is it even profitable to do it this way? So I think, setting goals, focusing on hitting the goals, and then checking in after a couple of months will give you a better information about whether or not you should continue, or if you should, pivot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Mike, for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Shopasaurus is tough. I've been there.
Yes. Good luck.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a quote that I saw recently from, I think it was Warren Buffett. He was talking about, someone asked him why him and Charlie Munger were so rich, and he gave like a 2-sentence answer. And I think it was something like, find what works and keep doing it, the essential algorithm to life. So if you find something that works, definitely don't be afraid to milk the shit out of it and keep doing it.
Yes.
Next up, we have Connor P. Connor, I'm going to add you as an attendee. Mike, I'm going to kick you back down. Connor, once you get in here, can you tell David a little bit about what you're working on, why you're working on it, what your goals are, and what he can help you with?
Hello?
Hey.
Hey. So first off, thank you, Cortland, and thank you, David, for hosting this office hour. I appreciate it. So I guess to start, I'll just go a little bit into my background. So I have been a software engineer for the last 3 or 4 years, and I've had a pretty decent career so far. But I've always wanted to create a business or create a product using my skills and my capabilities. And I'm currently kind of at that phase where I'm trying things out. I'm trying to build products and create value for businesses using my skills, as opposed to just working for a company. And so I built my first software product in December of this year. It's a Shopify app, and it's very basic. It, you know, does one thing. It provides businesses with like it's an announcement bar app, and it when there's a button that comes with the announcement bar, and when a user clicks the button, it has a pop-up where the user can enter their email and they can get a discount on their first purchase. So I built that app, and I'm currently waiting for it to be approved by Shopify. But when I built the app, I kind of came up with, you know, I guess a problem or a need that I had, which was handling customer support inquiries that might come in. And, you know, I've read some articles on getting started creating like a plugin or an app-based business. And one of the first things, you know, that I've read was to have some sort of, you know, customer support solution in place so that you can help out the customers when they have issues with your product. And so I started looking into, you know, how to create something like that, or looking into existing solutions on the market. And, you know, I decided that I thought that I could build something that, you know, could be more automated, or, you know, could be better than what is currently available. And so, like, this is pretty much 3 weeks ago, I began building this system. And Cortland, can I just share my screen and show what I've built so far?
Yeah, go for it. It should work earlier.
Okay, so this is the system that I've built so far. It does one thing. It's very simple. It you know, it has this user interface here that users can create and submit a ticket, and they can manage and see the updates for their ticket here. And there's an admin that you know, the business itself can use to you know, here's a little data visualization for the tickets that they have and the statuses that they're in, and they can interact with their customers. So it's very basic. This is all it does. What I've built is basically, you know, an MVP. And what I want to do is I want to take this to businesses and you know, see if they would test it out, just to, you know, I don't know. I want to take this, and I have a bunch of ideas for features and things that I could add to it to make it a really incredible product. But I want to do some real validation on this before, you know, I invest the time and resources into building all of that out. And, you know, I want to create like a real product out of this. So, you know, without getting into any specific questions for now, you know, just in general, you know, what are your thoughts on this concept that I have, and how should I go about getting, you know, some early feedback on the system and where I could go with it?
Yeah, thanks. That's cool. Yeah, I think it looks like a great product. Congrats on finishing it and getting it out there.
Thanks.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of help desk software, right? There's like Zendesk, that kind of, you know, there's tons of options. And so I think that's fine, right? There's like, you know, there's hundreds of coffee shops in every city, like that's okay. But then it's about like, you know, how do you get customers? So it's going to be competitive. So it's going to be harder to get customers, and you're going to make less profit because there's so much competition, right? So those are the sort of downsides of entering like a highly competitive market. But if you're really excited about it and think you can do something different, you know, obviously, you know, go for it. You know, so that's kind of where I would start, is like, you know, who is your target customer, right? And maybe you've looked at the landscape of all of these tools, and maybe like Zendesk is really great for companies of a certain size, you know, and whatever other help desk software is great for another. Like, is there like a gap in the market that you want to fill? You know, or, you know, is there something, do you think there's something like fundamentally broken about the way these other people are doing?
I do. And so I work as a full-time engineer, you know, as well. I think I might have said that earlier. And so we have certain times, and this might be just our company that I work for, but we have times where we have about 5 customer support reps, and we have a ticketing system already, and they just they get completely bottlenecked with inquiries. There's times where they get 100 to 200 inquiries a day, and they, a lot of them, they have to ask the customers the exact same questions in, most of those inquiries. So what I envision is automating a lot of that repetitiveness, so that companies and customer service representatives are only using their time where it's, absolutely critical. And I think that's kind of the fundamental flaw in a lot of these pre-existing solutions. I mean, based on purely, maybe I haven't done enough research on some of the competition out there, but based on how my company, has been in terms of handling these support inquiries, it hasn't been enough. And so that's kind of where this, where I'm looking at it is I want to automate a lot of the repetitiveness in this space.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think if that approach, maybe your company is a good first customer, but I would find a customer that's using one of your competitors, and work really closely with them and see, what their biggest, what is the lowest hanging fruit for automation, and build that and see if that alleviates their pain if they use this instead of whatever they were using before. But I would also I don't know that much about the space, and I know that there is a lot of automation happening. I think if you assume that everybody in this space is smart, what are they going to do? Well, they want to help agents become more efficient, right? And so there are canned responses. There may be some batching and queuing of things, using, AI to do that. So I would really understand what it is other people are doing, and then what is, you sound like you have a unique insight with your own company, but what are you going to do that's different?
Yeah, and so that's kind of where I'm at now is I really didn't want to build in all of those type of features and all of that functionality because some of these competitors could be doing the exact same thing that I have envisioned. So I want to go to these companies, who are using my competition's products. How would you suggest me actually meeting and having these conversations with these people?
Yeah, I think, one approach you could take is, maybe, is this something you could approach your company about, or is this a side project that they don't know about?
This is a side project that they're not aware about. I mean,
okay. Okay, so then maybe it's not your company. I would say your company if it was totally okay with them, but since it's unclear, a friend's company, someone where somebody,
okay,
and get connected with someone on the support team, whether it's an agent or a manager. A manager would probably be ideal, and just interview them about what their biggest problems are with using their existing help desk software, and then you can propose something.
Mm-hmm.
Based on that information, and I think positioning it as hey, friend, I would love to connect with the manager of your company, manager of customer success or manager of customer support. I would like to help solve whatever problems your customer support team is having right now, and frame it as I want to help. I think I can help with my software, and then interview him or her. And then propose a solution.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And maybe hopefully that solution is scalable. That's one way to approach it, kind of like a high touch sort of service model. And then once you figure it out and get a couple of customers, scaling it from there. But I think initially, really figuring out what your differentiator is. What I would do this. Talk to as many customer support managers as you could to really see if you see any common themes.
Okay. And so let's say I run down my list of people in my network, and I've gotten 5 or 6 or maybe 10 people, and had conversations with them. After that, would you just recommend like just cold outreach on like LinkedIn to
I mean,
reach people?
I think 5 or 10 would definitely be enough to figure out
Okay.
like what you should be building.
Okay.
And then once you do that, you know, and you've built it and like it's working for these people, you know, then figuring out like your customer acquisition strategy, you know, from there. But I think really figuring out, yeah, what it is that what's your differentiator, and like who's, you know, how much are people willing to pay for it? You can figure that out, I think, with 5 to 10, talking to 5 to 10, you know, personas of who your target customer is.
Okay. And then all right, so like I just want to kind of pivot into like another topic now. So
Yeah, go ahead.
if I wanted to, like, let's say we get, you know, 5 or 10 people to provide feedback and, you know, get insights, and I build that to their specifications, and we have, you know, like a real valuable product. How would how would I start going to like accelerators and trying to get picked up? I mean, you know, is that just as simple as applying to them? Like, I don't know. I mean, I really want to like the YC or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many options these days, and it is, I mean, it really is applying. I mean, I think the exercise of applying helps you, you know, especially with YC's application, really helps you think about your business, sometimes really differently than maybe the way you have been thinking about it. So, you know, whether you're going to submit an application to YC today or not, it could be a useful exercise to just go through the application with this idea and sort of see, you know, look at your business that way. But yeah, I think, you know, to apply for funding or apply for one of these accelerators, I think it's a really good time when you have, I mean, there's so many different times when you can apply, you know, it really depends. But like for your case, I would say, you know, once you have a couple of customers and you have sort of a vision, and you can, you know, you can see a vision of how this is going to be big and how big it can be. And you can have some conviction around that, and some informed conviction, you know, based on your conversations. Because you know, when you apply and you're being interviewed, it's talking to you about your business and like where it's going and why, you know, and why you're going to do better than Zendesk at it, right? And so in order, you know, to increase your chances of doing that, you know, to the best, you know, to get your best chances of getting in, like the more you understand your business, the more you understand your vision, and the more experience you have like working against that, the more helpful it'll be. But I think, yeah, I think really, you know, learning this space and then having conviction around a vision will help a lot. Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't know,
right.
Cortland. Cortland probably has an opinion on that too.
I think what you're saying echoes what you were telling Mike a little bit earlier about sort of knowing who your customer is, having conviction. It's easier to build something and have more faith in it if you know exactly who you're building it for, what sets them apart from people who are not your customers, et cetera. And so I think what David was saying about talking to your customers, having interviews is highly underrated. I talked to Daniel Gross on the Indie Hackers podcast a few weeks back. He was a YC partner. Now he's got a company. But with his new company, he said he talks to something like 15 or 20 users a day. Something crazy that's like well beyond the league of what I've ever done. And so I would use that as kind of a bar. Okay, maybe you're not going to talk to 20 people a day, but try to talk to one person a day, and you'll learn a lot more about what you're building, what features are worth building, and what's not worth building. And in relation to like your question about accelerators, yeah, just apply. If you want to get into YC, apply. Talk to other YC founders, get people to review your application, spend a lot of time actually making it good, and let the process of filling out your application shape how you sort of build your business, because the questions on there are really good, and they're questions for a reason. So there's nothing super special. Just apply and have a great application.
Okay. All right. I have one last question, I think. So in terms of these first, you know, 5 or 10 potential customers, like let's just say the first 10 users to my product, should I like give them any type of special offers, you know, to join? Like, should I give it for free? Should I give them a large, you know, free trial, or should I just say, no, like, you know, I'm going to have to charge you guys like X number of dollars per month? Like, how should I go about acquiring those first few?
That's a really interesting question, and it's tough. But one approach I think that I always use is like find a good potential customer that is going to champion your product. Whoever's the best fit to champion your product, and do it for free. and just wow them, and then use that as your case study and testimonial, and like leverage that to get more customers. You know, you could also, like, the thing is, for this product, because there's a lot of competition, it's unlikely that people are going to pay you for this more than what they're paying for Zendesk, which might be like $20 a month, right? And so so it's, you know, it doesn't cost you too much to just give it to them for free. I mean, you know, you are doing a lot of work, right? So it is costing you, but I feel like in order to get traction, like, you need to be validated by someone who your future customers are gonna you know, connect with.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one approach that you could take. Just, yeah, get one champion customer, give them a big discount or free, and then use it as a case study, you know, to get more customers.
Okay.
All right, Connor, thanks so much for coming on. We are
Thank you.
move on.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, best of luck. We're going to move on to our next guest. He tried to join earlier. It didn't work. Tila, we're going to bring you back and see if it works this time. And if it does, then why don't you introduce yourself, tell us what you're working on, and let David know how he can help you.
Awesome. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. And thank you first, Cortland, for getting my name pronunciation right. Always appreciate that.
Cool.
50-50 shot.
Wild guess.
Right on. So really appreciate you taking time, David. Just give you kind of a quick overview. I'm a product guy, so spent the last 7-8 years in software as a service companies. I worked for Moz, got a very deep understanding of search engine optimization. The last company I worked for went public last summer, so I don't have FU money, but I've got enough where I think I can bootstrap something interesting that solves a real problem in the market. So my vision is that I want to create a source of truth for the world's brand information. That does not exist out there. That is not something that Google does today, although they are, you know, a key competitor if somebody were to ask me tomorrow, right? Could Google do it if they wanted? Probably. My target market that I've chosen is to go after marketers. There's a couple of other personas, you know, particularly designers and developers who also care about working with brand information. But I've really narrowed in on my MVP being brand guidelines. It's a very small subset of brand, but something that is achievable, will deliver value, and where, you know, kind of the market is currently fundamentally broken. There's nobody doing this in a really accessible way for companies. And so my unique selling proposition is that I'm going to build brand guidelines, and I'm going to do that automatically. And so what I'm wrestling with is, you know, for my to achieve the vision that I've set out and really become this source of truth, and particularly for some of the SEO strategies that I have in mind, it requires scale, a large number of brands using the product. And that's what keyed me into into a freemium model. So the idea being that we'll build these brand guidelines for you for free. You can host them for free. We get attribution back, and then eventually that helps us build scale. I've, you know, in going through customer development interviews, I've cued in on specific areas where customers have told me, hey, that seems like something that I might expect to pay for. So I've got some good, strong signal. But I'm concerned kind of in going to market with that initial hypothesis without further testing. So my current approach is going to be to launch with just the free version, and then to have a call to action for the to upgrade or to buy the paid version, and then gather data from that, right? Survey users or further capture data. And I'm just wondering if you, well, first, in talking to pricing professionals, folks that have kind of done this before, I get big red flags thrown in my face. Don't go after freemium. If you price it wrong, you'll sink yourself. And I certainly see that risk, but I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on ways to kind of reduce or manage that risk. And let's start out with that maybe as the first question.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. It's really hard, obviously, to figure out pricing. When it comes to like, especially if you want to bootstrap this, I would definitely say consider like starting with a paid version of this. Well, first of all, I guess, can you describe, exactly what does this product do?
Sure. So it's a very smooth onboarding process. You just provide your information, your basic onboarding information, your name.
And am I a company or a marketer?
You're a company, so you're not an agency. Agency would be a potential follow-on product, right? So you're the ideal persona is a marketing manager, director of marketing, VP of marketing
Okay.
at a software company or similar, right? Because I know that audience. So you would provide your company's URL. We would go and scrape and collect that information automatically for all your brand elements. You could correct that information to add to it if you need to. We'll guide you with the best practices. And so really it's just a few steps to confirm as the happy path, publish it, and then those guidelines are live on my site, and you'll have an embed code where you can easily drop that into a new page on your own site. And that's all the free model at this point.
And this is brand guidelines for, a press page if people want to use your assets in press, or is this a brand guidelines internally for the team to know what assets to use for blog posts, stuff like that?
So the MVP product is intended as a external brand guidelines so that the press, your customers, and your partners can represent your brand accurately and effectively.
Got it.
The internal resource is certainly a post MVP opportunity that we would go after.
Got it. Yeah. So I think, since you mentioned bootstrapping, it sounds like this is a business that you want to make sort of as a long-term business, right? Where customers are paying you. And so one approach could be like, what is it that in the brand guidelines sort of problem space, like what is someone willing to pay for? Mm-hmm. Right. And so if you're targeting, a marketing group within a company, like, what is a pain that they are willing to pay for? Is it, like just automating the creation of brand guidelines? Is it like actually help creating brand guidelines initially? Like, what is that? Like, what is again, like for bootstrapping, I think, starting with a higher touch, more service approach. And then, the freemium side kind of, as one approach is doing that higher touch thing and then automating it, right? And making it scalable, and then doing freemium to sort of fill the top of the funnel to deliver that thing. And so, if you're doing freemium for this, automated brand guidelines, what is the next level thing that people will pay for, right? Because, is there something you have in mind that's after, automating your brand guidelines? Is there something that you would see people paying for?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's the core components to brand guidelines. But there are additional kind of features within the concept of brand guidelines that are premium. So, for example, I want my colors represented in Pantone, right? So that's a version or a feature that users could want. And then beyond just the standard kind of logos, fonts, and colors, which come with the freemium or with the free version, there's your brand imagery, brand illustrations. There are logo lockups. There's a whole bunch of additional features that more sophisticated brands want. And I've gotten some signal that they would pay for. So I have confidence that, to the extent that I can without having, gone to market, I have confidence that the paid product I'm going to build meets a need in the market that exists. What I don't have is the lever to move users from the expectation of free that I'm potentially setting to the paid product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like you have talked to users, but I would, my sort of opinion would be, have a conversation, whatever your vision is of the paid product, like have conversations and say, interview these users about this problem that they're having and say, I built this thing, it costs $500. Are you interested in it? you know, and actually in getting to that point, right? And then if they say yes, you can say, okay, we're working, it's in development. I'll let you know as soon as it's done. But I think validating, you know, what price point and what the thing is that you can sell is important before doing the freemium part, because the freemium should be filling the top of the funnel for whatever your paid version is, right? So if it's like you were saying, like the freemium is like, hey, come to this URL, drop in URL, and you get an automatic brand guideline, right? But upgrade here if you want X plus your brand guideline, right? And whatever that is should be, you know, you should validate that people are willing to pay for that. And you know, in my opinion, if that's not validated, then, you know, doing the free brand guideline thing is cool, and maybe you could build a long lead list for something, but then you'll have to figure out what you're going to sell them. So I think validating what that thing people are gonna pay for ultimately is could really help you, you know.
The perspective there is really helpful, but also just the words, right? The ask to really get that data point of, you know, I built this thing, would you pay X for it?
Right, or hey, I built this thing, it's $500, are you interested? Right? And it's a simple question, yeah.
That's super actionable for me. So I've got while I have other things I could ask you, I think I'm actually kind of, it's a better use of both of our time for me to go and talk to a few folks about that.
Awesome. Good luck.
Right on. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
So action-oriented, Tila. Already going to go talk to you. Well, thanks so much for coming on. We are now going to move on to the only Mr. Hat, who wishes to remain anonymous. Mr. Hat, I'm going to add you. Once you get on here, why don't you introduce yourself and tell David what you're up to and what you could use his help with.
Hello, boss. Sorry, I missed the introduction with the switch of user role. So, Mr. Hat, thank you, Cortland. Thank you, David. Really happy to be there, be able to speak to you both. So, quick introduction. I'm head of product in a startup here in Belgium. I have a side project. I'm here to talk about this particular side project. In few words, it comes from my personal experience and from what I observe on the market. Just a quick story to give you a picture. We are fastly growing, so we doubled the amount of people in the company in less than 12 months. So people are really busy in many things, many different things. Priorities are changing a lot, and we have also a lot of people working remotely. And at some points, we implement a simple rule: when you work remotely, you just have to do a check-in on Slack at the beginning of the day, saying what you'll do during the day, and at the end of the day, you just say what you've done. So at least you can see and we can stay updated about what's happening. Turns out that I realized that we were more knowing what people were doing while they were working remotely than people being into the office. And if you cross that with one amazing things we've implemented at work, despite the Scrum framework that we are also applying, is the OKR, so objective and key results. OKR are really great to align the company and to align the team on a common goal to achieve in a certain time frame. But I found out that we have the main pain that we are not solving with OKR is making sure that people on a daily basis know what is expected from them and being able to track that and to empower them to better know how they can improve themselves to reach a goal and help them know what is their impact on the company and on the global goal. Because when you track OKR, you still have a time frame of a quarter, and when you are in the middle of the quarter, you may get lost. And that's why we decided to build that solution. So Achieved, it's a simple solution that helps you and allow everyone to do a check-in at the beginning of the day, do a checkout at the end of the day, do that publicly to a team or an organization, so everyone can see what's happening, and being able to link that to objectives, so the managers and the organization can quickly see the pulse of the organization, see what have been done, but we can also quickly give actionable feedback to the users, telling him, hey, you at the beginning of the day, you always say that you do a certain bunch of things, but turns out that you are doing completely different things. So you may be challenged on how you organize your day, what is your focus, and being sure that you refocus on the right things. And also, it helps managers to immediately celebrate something when it happens. So at the end of the day, when someone had a good day and achieved all what he was planning to do or overachieve things, then at least you can immediately see it and celebrate it with that person. And that's also come from my personal experience, because as I have the product, I'm managing a team that is quite hectic, and turns out that I'm not all the time with there. I'm meeting customers, managing stakeholders internally and externally, and I miss all that small magic moments that are happening during the day or during the week where they achieve something really great, but the day after it doesn't have the same taste because it just happened and it got normal. So that's are the things that we're trying to solve today with what we're building. So coming from the product side, like Tila was doing, if I was saying, I did a lot of interview. I interviewed around 50 managers and business owners to validate the idea and the pitch. I received a lot of positive feedback and excitement. So I started with a friend a landing page, and we both decided to stay anonymous, mostly due to our other activities during daytime. And for that reason, it's quite challenging because I had no brand, no existence online, and I had to start from scratch, building a person for Mr. Hats, and also building a brand. Over the first months, I reached 1,000 unique visitors on the website and converted 10% of them. So my first question, and really something that I couldn't figure online, is it okay in terms of metrics? Does it prove something? I got some of them resending me email asking me when they would be available because they are really excited. But still, I'm wondering what would justify us to start developing the thing.
Yeah, thanks for the backstory. Yeah, it's an interesting product. I definitely see the value. And that's great that you talked to 50 managers already. I think, yeah, I mean, as soon as you have named a price that someone is willing to pay, and someone is willing to pay, and you're like, it's aligned, then just start building it.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have a lot of interest, it sounds like these 50 managers are potential customers, people are finding the site. And so, yeah, I think, have you figured out your pricing?
Yeah, most probably we go with a freemium model, just really for small team, just to grasp them as soon as they start growing and to stick them to the tool, because I think that's the most important things. And then the price range will be between $4 and $8 per user per month. So something that is cheap enough to make sure that it's not a constraint, especially because it's a commodity tool. Might not be the easy to justify until we don't have a renowned brand. So I want it to be affordable for the team, and making sure that it can go under the validation of. Let's say that if I want to target a team in a big company, I want that price to be cheap enough to go on the credit card, and making sure that it doesn't require other
approval. Yeah,
exactly.
And so, what is the long-term goal with this project? Is it to become a full-time thing? Is it to get to a certain revenue, or what's your goal with it?
The goal is within 12 months you hit the target of 10K MRR by bootstrapping, and then eventually raising fund.
Okay, so 10K MRR within 12 months. And so what does that look like then at the price point you mentioned? Like, how many customers is that?
If I'm not mistaken, it's around 350.
So 350 customers with how many members per team?
It's 8%. Let me take back my my spreadsheet, would be easier because
Yeah, because I mean, the reason I ask is because this can really help inform your pricing and business model,
Yeah.
right? And it sounds like you've already thought about this, but you know,
Yeah.
just thinking out loud, like, you know, if you want to get to 10K MRR within 12 months, like, you know, how's the fastest way, you know, what's the fastest way to that? You know, I would think about like, what's the most that you can charge? And without, you know, I know, you know, we have assumptions about what companies are willing to pay, but like, can you just say a flat fee and say, hey, this is how much it's going to cost and onboard a couple of customers, and then extrapolate that plus growth to get to your 10K MRR. And so maybe it's not $4 to $8 per user. Like maybe you could actually charge like, you know, $50 per user. Anyway, I would just be open-minded about the pricing and recommend starting with paying customers versus freemium, in the sense that, you know, ultimately you want to get to this 10K MRR. So, you know, finding out who's willing to pay for the value and just like onboarding them first, you know, and then again, my opinion is that, you know, freemium is for top of the funnel to get people into the paid version, right? And so once you have clear value that people are paying for, you can see like what should you strip away to make free to get people, you know, interested and onboarded, you know, to start paying. And so I think that's one strategy, you know, 10K MRR, at what price point, how many customers, and like, what's the timeline to get to that?
Yeah, so my first calculation from the initial feedback would be a team of 15 person. So 15 user at price range. I target the lowest price of 4 USD. It would require me to get around 160 customers by end of year, in 12 months.
And how would you get your first 10 customers?
That pretty much I already got them.
Okay.
Yeah, because I already got confirmation that I would already have one customer with 80 users and one with 23 and one other one. So I reached that targets from scratch just by starting it.
Oh, great. And so they've already, in the price point, everything they're already on board with?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like you should get started.
Yeah. So we started developing like a week ago. So we target to have something ready by end of April, most probably. So we now in the tricky situation because I already got 100 companies waiting on the waiting list. Of course, most of them will not convert because they just subscribe and will forget about it. But even if I convert 10% of them, I'm already good for the 2 first months of my target, plus the one that are not in the list that I got that I have personal contact with. So the only thing that I'm wondering is that should I continue to try to increase that list, or should I stop and engage conversation with a small one to make sure that I engage deeper conversation with them? That's a bit of the tricky situation. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I would say start now with a small group.
Yeah.
And get people to start paying, and like and then you're good, and then you're just, you know, refining the product and figuring out how to get more customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense, because obviously since it's a side project, it's quite difficult to have enough time to engage with all those people and really deep into stronger conversations. So what I will do now is to start a Slack community, make sure that eventually being able to gather that group and see if something is happening. Worst case, it's just a fail, but best case, I can try to build up a small community around the project and collect positive feedback from that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay, and you as an angel investors, what are the metrics that catch your attention, let's say for a very early stage company?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think you know, team and traction are always, I think, are really strong signals from an investor perspective. So, you know, traction indicates that you're kind of onto something, so those are the strongest things I would say. You know, what is the unique insight from the team? Like, why what does this team know that other people don't know? And like, have they demonstrated that they can get traction against, with this unique insight and with their skills?
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Interesting.
Well, we are out of time. We have one more guest, actually.
Perfect.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Hat, for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Hat.
Yeah. Thank you, dear both.
Good luck.
Really good. Thank you.
Our next guest is known as Vamshi. Rhymes with Banshee. Might be a mysterious figure coming on. Vamshi, once you're here, can you let David know about what you're up to, what your company does, and what you need help with? I think he's just
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes. How's it going, Vamshi?
Good. How are you?
Excellent.
Thank you, David, for taking time and helping entrepreneurs. Yeah. So myself, Vamshi. So I am a UX consultant. So then I started trading cryptocurrencies, and then I was trying being like on the software side. I was trying out various things, and then suddenly I started using a bot, trying out like how it trades, and then I ran into like thousands of transactions without making a lot of profit though. So in the January of last year, so I got notice from GDAX saying like, okay, you have crossed our threshold and your profile will be sent to IRS. So that's kind of scary. So then it was like I had to file the taxes. So I was trying out various tools that are already available, and then found like a lot of tools can't handle so much of transactions. So then I decided to build one myself. So then within like 1 month, me and a couple of friends, so we sat together, and that's our founding team, I would say. So in about 20 to 25 days, we built a platform which can handle like 20,000 plus transactions and do all the calculations and give the gain loss. So I would not take a lot of time, just show you how the platform looks so that you get an idea. So this and we call it Bear Tax actually. Yeah, Bear Tax is a name of the startup. So this is a sample account that has this is the onboarding, and then once you are here, you can choose an exchange that you have traded and import it. So we have API connections as well as the file uploads. So whatever you import, they all come here. So you go and see like what's your gain loss. So we show a list of transactions. Then we ask you to review. If we can't find any deposits or withdrawals, we can't match any deposits or withdrawals across the exchanges. And then we show the gain loss information. So here on the gain loss, yeah, so you see a detailed list of like what you traded, like what's the quantity acquired, sold on, and then simple like we take you to payment, and we have like simple pricing plans depending on the number of transactions. Like if you have less than 20, you can just pay $1 and get your tax documents, and like so on. So in the tax documents, we are providing 8949, an aggregated version if you have tons of transactions, and a CSV that you can provide it to your accountant. And we are also integrated with TurboTax online, so you can just download the CSV and upload it on TurboTax to continue with your tax filing. So that's about our product. So we are about 1 year into it now. So we worked with last year's tax season for about a month, and then we worked with Australian tax season for 3 months, and now we are into US tax season again. So the progress is good. So meanwhile, along this process, we applied for YC, and we got a call for the interview, and then we went there, but we couldn't get it though. And then we are now bootstrapped. So we are a founding team of 4. So we are working on this. And yeah, so my questions now is like we are doing good, and we have like about 4,000 customers plus 4,000 plus customers. And but I would say like there's a lot more potential given our competitors, how they are doing, and people. So we want to grow. We want to know like how to grow. Our team is like completely technology background, so we are all software engineers. So we are really, I mean, I wouldn't say struggling, but yeah, I can say struggling to do the marketing and sales. So we want to go to that next level where we can get that next 20 to 50,000 customers, because there are millions of customers who are using Coinbase and trading cryptocurrencies. So we want to tap into that market and grow this. that's the B2C side of it. And on B2B, I would like to get connected to people who are using Google Sheets or any accounting platforms for the businesses, and leverage our platform because we are already integrated with tons of exchanges, and then provide platform services to them. So these are our two B2C and B2B problems that we have. So okay, I'll break it down into questions. So first question is, so if we have, say, like, okay, 5-digit number of revenue, so how do we spend this revenue on marketing without burning out?
Yeah, so good question, and that's great. 4,000 customers is not easy, so that's a good start.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, yeah, so the question is, how do you spend revenue, I guess, in the most efficient way?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of comes back to, like, yeah, I think, you mentioned 2 types of customers. I would say, like, get really specific about one type of customer.
Okay.
And figure out how to acquire that customer, and maybe you do this exercise with a couple of different personas, and, wherever you can profitably acquire customers is where you should invest. Okay. Right? So you can use this money to get more customers. You can use this money to, you should be using this money to get more customers and to build your team to service those customers. Right. Okay. And so, maybe there's free ways to get customers, right? And then in which case you save this money until you need it to hire more people to build for the, for your customers. Right now. Yeah. And so, that's never, a terrible thing to have a lot of savings as a company, right? And it just gives you more runway. But yeah, I would definitely recommend figuring out, who is the, of these 4,000 customers, like which one, what is the majority of them? Are they?
It's all B2C as of now.
All B2C. And are there any common characteristics in, like, a group of them, or?
I would say most of them fall into, like, somebody trading between 200 to 1,000 transactions on 4 to 5 exchanges.
And are they, okay, but in terms of a persona, it's not that's kind of hard to say, like, oh, it's a person. Yeah, how do you identify these people? How are they finding you right now?
Yeah, for now I'm trying to do, like, okay, this is the kind of persona that I am trying to make on ads targeted audience. So it's kind of a person between 24 to 55, because those are the people who pay taxes. So 24 to 55, targeting mostly men, and having in metropolitan areas like New York, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and San Francisco, and Boston and Chicago kind of cities. So so that's kind of targeted audience that I'm looking at.
Can I interject with a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a lot written online about personas and marketing and trying to identify your customers, but one sort of shortcut you can take is ask yourself if there's any place where some subset or some group of your customers sort of hang out together. Are there any types of clubs that they join, any websites that they're part of, any podcasts they listen to? Have you noticed any trends like that among your customers, or is it just sort of these individual characteristics where it's like they must be between these ages and they must be male and living in the city?
Yeah, actually, I'm trying to do that too, like who attend kind of meetups around particular topics. So yeah, so it's kind of blockchain meetups, and somebody who subscribes to some of the podcasts, and also like who reads more of like investing and the Morning Post and things like that.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to ask a question to sort of augment David's question, because that could shed some light onto who you might want to target. If they're already grouping together in places where you can reach them all together, that might be the easiest segment to invest in to try to grow.
Definitely, that helps. I'll make a point of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it definitely helps to have setting goals for the company. So, do you have monthly revenue goals or user goals right now?
This particular goals thing has we have habituated from YC Startup School. So yeah, we are having a goal of about like 50 to 60 users per week, per day. So we are trying to, we are not yet hitting there. So we are in this tax season, we are going close like 40 to 50. But yeah, we try to reach out people on like Twitter, Reddit, and other places where we can, and try to see like we have like things set up to alert us, like if somebody is posting for a particular topic, go help them. and think that's how we are sourcing our customers right now.
Right. Yeah. So in terms of like, yeah, how do you spend, how do you know where to spend your resources? It's like, yeah, doing, having the weekly goals and the daily goals helps you figure out how do you hit those goals. And in the case when you're using money to hit those goals, like finding the profitable way
Okay.
to get those customers and then putting money behind that.
Okay. Because this question came out from things like I was reaching out to some of the marketing and PR agencies, and they are like costing a bomb, and that doesn't even match what we can make or what we can spend.
Right.
That's like, I don't know, like, I mean, there are about 7 to 8 competitors in the space, so I can see like them being featured on various things. So when I try to go there, like it's like it's not even feasible. So
right.
How do you recommend going about that?
Sorry, how recommend going about like working with, competing or
competing? Yeah, competing. So they're doing like big spending. So how do you do it
right.
for a bootstrap startup?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the more
like
competitive.
Some of our competitors are well funded. One is YC
right.
as
Coin Tracker, right?
Coin Tracker, yes.
Yeah. The more competitive a space is, the more the more expensive it gets to acquire customers. And so I think just thinking of unique ways to get customers, whether, like Cortland said, going, being active in the forums or communities where these folks are,
yes.
Adding value to the community.
Yes.
I mean, you can get new customers through like, community, content marketing, business development, partnering with agents at H&R Block, or, doing a big partnership that way. Or just direct sales. But yeah, figuring out what, some unique channel, easier said than done, but you got to figure that out. That's not ads, because ads in competitive spaces are just not profitable sometimes, and also not sustainable.
Yeah, definitely. So we are going like content first approach. So we are trying to build the content that's helpful for people and trying to write posts on other places so people can come through that. So that's what is driving a lot of traffic. So
awesome.
we hope to do that and see how it goes.
Yeah, with content marketing, there's a lot of unique opportunities that I think are kind of low hanging fruit. So finding companies that have a similar audience to you.
Okay.
And offering them the content you've created to syndicate on their blogs. Ask them to retweet your content and you'll retweet some of their content. So just like these swaps can be a really good way to get your content to even more people. Especially if you've already proven that the content works to get customers in. Like, how do you amplify it, right? And you can go on like Outbrain or these other like, other ad networks for content, where you can promote your articles and things like that. You can do, you can do swaps with people with similar audiences. Stuff like that.
And other question is like for YC to consider. So do you think like being full-time, being part-time is an obstacle? Do they see it as an obstacle?
I can't speak for them really, but I think, I think if you're full-time, it demonstrates how committed you are to the project. But if you're not full-time, but you're planning to go full-time, that's almost as good. And so I don't think that, I think that's fine.
So I was thinking to reapply, but actually like 3 of us are part-time because of the immigration concerns. It's not passion or anything. Yeah. So that's a unique situation. So yeah, hoping to, I would like to apply again and see like how, I'm thinking the mentorship and the kind of connections for this kind of business, especially, I think that would help is what I'm thinking. So what do you suggest? Is it good to look for accelerators, or is it good to look to grow independently?
I think both, focus on growing the business, and then all the other opportunities become easier. It sounds like you're not in an immediate need for funding. So you can continue to do this and continue to grow the business. And if you just focus on growing the business, then getting into, any accelerator is just going to become, more easy. And so I would just focus on building the business, keep applying to YC, I think, I've been rejected many times before being accepted. I think that's really common. And yeah, just keep building the business. It sounds like it's working.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's it for now from my side. Yeah, if you're into Bitcoin, you can just go and see, try out the platform. Yep.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you
So much for coming on.
Good luck.
Thank you for giving this opportunity. Yep.
Thank you.
Arranging this Codeland.
Yeah. Okay. We've got one last guest, David, if you've got time.
Yes.
This is Darsan.
I have,
from the Indie Hackers website. Darsan, I've added you as a panelist, so if you can get your video and your audio up, then we can.
Hello, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, there you are. How's it going?
Okay, great. Hi.
Why don't you tell us about what you're working on and how David can help you?
Sure. Just quickly, thanks as well for the opportunity. And I know it's the end of the session, so I'll try to be brief. So my company is based in Ireland. Might be able to tell from my accent, but it's kind of unusual. We sell B2B software into companies in Japan. So that was based on my own experience working out in Tokyo as an engineer for a couple of years. And our product is English training for those Japanese companies. So we provide a mobile app that they issue to their employees, and they use it for improving their speaking training. And then we record all the analytics and data and report it back to the HR so they can see the improvement in their staff's English training. And it's going okay. It's kind of taken a while. Japan is a kind of a slow, tough market. But, we've found a good distributor there. And there are, 15 companies at the moment using the product. Some good names, including Sony and NEC. But the revenues are still relatively small. And the issue that we have is that, there isn't really enough revenue from it to actually warrant hiring extra people, salespeople on the ground. And the distributor themselves, even though they try to sell it as much as possible, they won't commit to a monthly revenue target. They're like, if we can sell it, we'll sell it. But there's no kind of consistent guarantee of revenue there. So I'm kind of caught between either, I guess, trying to find a good salesperson out there, or just to try to partner with as many distributors as possible to kind of take a more low touch model, I guess. And obviously, it's kind of conflated by the fact that I'm not in Japan full time. I go out there a couple of times a year to kind of keep those relationships going. But I'm kind of contemplating moving back full time to really try to push it.
Yeah.
So I guess the question there really is, do you think that trying to go the distributor route as much as possible rather than the direct sales route is wise in that case?
I think it's definitely worth trying. So it sounds like you're growing, but you're not growing at the rate that you'd like to be. Do you have a revenue target in mind already of where you need to be?
For this year, I'd like to do 120,000 euro in revenue, but at the moment it's like, maybe so that would be obviously around 10 a month. At the moment, it's about 2.
And what are you charging per customer per month?
So it depends on the number of users.
What's the price per user?
The price per user is about, it ranges from average about 200 euros.
200 euro per user?
Roughly, yeah.
And and have you tried changing that at all? Increasing that?
I haven't, no. Like the pricing is kind of dictated by the distributor. Like we try to work with them very closely.
Got it.
And they kind of suggested that is a good price to take. But we have to give up a reasonable amount of, like we give 40% of the sale to them to get a margin.
And so you basically have an outsourced sales team that takes 40% of the revenue.
Right.
And you want to get to 120 of the 60% that you get, or 120 gross by the end of the year?
No, 120 for us.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so, and you're doing, so that's 10K a month and you're doing 2K a month now. So you're saying like, how do I grow? How do I 5X basically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, I've been kind of, I guess, talking to some mentors and stuff as well. And it's basically coming down to whether we go direct sales and I go out there and
got it.
Or we just kind of go all in on distributors.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, it sounds like there's, you know, I mean, it sounds like to move there and go all in on sales is like a bigger investment than going all in on the distributor side, like in terms of like testing these things. And so, you know, what's stopping you from going all in on the distributor side and trying to get more distributors?
Yeah, nothing really at the moment. I guess it's trying to find good ones, which has been hard so far.
Got it. So you are trying that approach already, and it's proving to be hard.
Yeah. I mean, partly I think as well is that, you know, as we're pretty early, we don't have a strong reputation. Like the product is good and it's pretty mature, but I think some customers are like, you know, they probably need this feature and this feature and this feature before they might take it on their books, you know.
Got it.
Constrained that way as well.
So is there a certain, so your distributors won't agree to a monthly goal? Is that right?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, like, sorry, just to digress. I mean, like, this is my first startup, so my first time dealing with distributors like that. So,
yeah.
I mean, from what I can gather, you know, if you have a well-established brand, like if you've got a product that's working really well in the US or in Europe, and you take it to Japan, like you've got the upper hand, right? So you can kind of command minimum monthly targets they got to hit.
Right.
But as a startup, I think it's difficult to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely important to set goals and hold people accountable in order to grow, you know, whether it's holding yourself accountable or these distributors. And if you can't hold them accountable, I think you maybe have to make assumptions about how much they can sell per month and be really conservative and assume, you know, how many reps do you have right now?
In that company, there are 3 people.
So you have three distributors right now?
No, sorry. 1 distributor, but 3 reps in that distributor who.
And they're giving you 2,000 in revenue. How many customers is that? That 2,000.
It's, let me see. I mean, it kind of depends on the deal, you know.
Got it.
Because some get more than others, but I mean, it'll be 2 a month max.
Okay, so 2 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like you can get you can get 2 customers per month per distributor, and if you want a 5X, it sounds like you need to have 5 distributors to get to 10 customers a month. And so I would, I mean, that's one approach is focus on getting 5 distributors. And if you can't, then you have to try direct sales. But direct sales, I think you probably, you know, if you're direct selling the product, one rule of thumb is that you want each customer to be, you know, 6 figures in revenue if you have a direct sales model, because it's high touch and each salesperson is going to cost you. And so that, you know, and so, figuring out if you can price your product at that price point to do that direct sales makes it worth it. You know, or you can try direct sales to kind of, you know, bootstrap figuring out how to get customers and then long-term have a different customer acquisition strategy. Like maybe it's just founder selling right now. But yeah, I mean, I think, to 5X your revenue, you got to 5X your distributors, or you, I guess, have to figure out how else to get, you know, 10 customers, which, and you know, there's a lot of different options, you know, like we were talking about before, like, but yeah, it sounds like 5Xing your distributors is the low hanging fruit.
Okay. And then, sorry, just to clarify on that, I mean, your rule of thumb then is that if you're employing salespeople directly like that, the value of that customer needs to be 100K. Like, is that like an annual contract or? Yeah,
the annual customer value should be, and that, at least in the US, I'm sure it's similar in Europe. That's a general, general thing to think about. So that each salesperson is paying for themselves.
Sure.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so when you think about the direct sales thing, like how scalable that is and, you know, how many customers you think you can get and all that stuff. Yeah, but it's a tough call. It sounds like that's not an easy thing to implement. I would definitely say, you know, consider, you know, 5Xing your distributors.
Okay. Just kind of as a quick aside, I mean, I'm just aware that Japan is a notoriously difficult market. Like the sales cycles are long, decision making takes a long time, and so on. You got to build trust, all this kind of cultural things as well. And I've been kind of thinking that maybe I could. I mean, there are adjacent markets like such as Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Indonesia, that would be pretty well suited to the product. And I'm probably going to do it anyway, but just contact a bunch of distributors there. But obviously worried about, the lack of focus and dissipating my energy there.
Yeah, I mean, if the North Star is getting to 10K a month in revenue, and it's really difficult to increase your distributors in Japan, and the product works in other geographies, like what's the next lowest hanging fruit? Right. And kind of go from there and go after the low hanging fruit to get you to 10K in MRR. And then at that inflection point, think about, okay, where do we double down now? It sounds like that's your next inflection point is 10K MRR. And so I think in the process of growing to that number, you'll have enough information to know which market, which strategy is where you want to double down.
It's going to get us there quickest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't really know. I don't know much about selling into Japan
and these markets, but I think generally, these are general things that work. Is setting goals, holding yourself accountable, and like this inflection point, 10K MRR. By getting there, you'll learn enough. You'll learn enough about who the right customer is and what market to go to know where to like double down. Whether it's hiring more.
Yeah.
I missed the beginning. What's the reason why you can only sell your product to markets that you don't live in?
Absolutely none. It's just kind of the way it worked. So just as a quick background, I lived out there for a couple of years, and the product has been pretty much designed with the Japanese market in mind, but it could, with some minor adjustments, be suitable for other markets but probably Asia. Generally,
I'm a big fan of founder-led sales, just because those conversations you learn so much. I don't know.
Of course, yeah.
David mentioned, the price per customer earlier, and you said your distributors are limiting you to $200. I say that's going to be right. But how do you know that's even true if you're not talking to the customers?
Sure.
You are sort of in a market that you're defining yourself. You don't have a lot of competition. You might be able to sell a product for significantly more than that. You might be able to 5x your prices and hit 10K tomorrow, right? And you don't really know you're not doing the sales. And so if there is some simple way for you to flip a switch and you can sell to people around where you live, or if there's a way for you to get on the phone and maybe a different market than Japan where you can actually call from somewhere and not have to follow traditional rules and make it difficult to sell at all, you can inject yourself into the sales process, and I would do that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess coming from that engineering background, I'm always acutely aware that I lack that sales part. So I've been, I have thrown myself into those meetings, and I've, when I visit Japan, a couple of times a year, I'll attend those meetings with the distributor and try to learn as much as I can.
Okay.
But it's just that, the lead times are long, and every time I come back, you kind of lose that momentum. So, yeah. But no, I appreciate the suggestion. I think maybe trying to find a more maybe relatable market that I can kind of low hanging fruit, like David said.
Okay, yeah. There's also a book by the founder of Nike. It's almost a reverse situation. He talks about basically he was a distributor of Japanese shoes in America, but it's so similar. As I just don't know very many people in this sort of situation that you might want to read it. I thought it was a good read.
Okay, great. No, I think I've heard that. I think it's Asics was the brand actually. They're actually Japanese.
Yeah. Anyway, Dare-san, thanks so much for coming on.
Great, yeah.
Apologies in advance. We have one more.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the time, Dare-san. Would you be able to talk to one more founder?
I actually have another meeting in 1 minute.
Oh, okay. Well, we've reached the end. Sorry, Anurag. Next time we'll get you in. But David, thank you so much for taking time. It's been like 2 hours of nonstop questioning. Any parting words for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think these were all really good. I think, to distill them all, I guess, like with some key takeaways, I think a really big thing is like setting goals for your company and for yourself and having someone to hold you accountable. and you just learn so much in that process of hitting those goals, and talking to your customers. Yeah, just talk to your customers more.
All right. Thanks a ton, Dave, for coming on.
Thanks so much.